All right, another spark and another build. Let's set the charge. Today we're going beyond the clash of the titans themselves. We're looking at the architecture of victory, the very blueprints of strategy.
We're tackling a fascinating and crucial part of the game's design, an episode we're calling Gated by Craft, CP and ST in the Task Subsystem.
Now before we dive in, how does one play Tools and Titans? Easy. Draw your cards, charge your energy, build your field, act with your powers, clash with your titans, end your turn. 6 steps. 1 epic battle. Let's talk about why this even needs to exist. In many card games, the path to victory is a straight line, a highway of brute force.
You build your army, you summon a bigger creature, you reduce your opponent's life total from 20 to 0. It's a power calculation and that's it.
But that can feel one-dimensional. If you fall behind on that highway, there's often no way back. So how does a game like Tools and Titans create other roads to victory?
That is the exact problem the task subsystem is designed to solve. It creates a second vector of play, a strategic dimension that runs parallel to the main conflict. It's not just about who has more power, it's about who is using their power more wisely.
So the big question we're exploring today is, how do the game's core resources, craft power and structure threshold, fuel this alternate path? How do they fit into a system that values objectives over attacks?
It's a fundamental design question, and the answer reveals the entire philosophy of the game. Let's break it down, starting with the heart of the system, the task cards themselves.
Okay, so let's get right to it. I have a task card in my hand. It represents a mission, an objective I need to complete. Does it have a craft power score printed on it? Just like a tool?
That's the critical question, and the answer is yes, but not in the way you might think. A task card should not have its own CP stat. Instead, it references CP as a condition. It's a gate, not a generator.
A gate? I like that. So it's not adding power to my board, it's checking the power I already have.
Exactly. Think of a task that reads, if your current CP exceeds your opponent's by 5, this task completes immediately. The task isn't generating those 5 CP, it's rewarding you for achieving that state of play. It's situational.
Okay, that makes sense. It turns my raw power into a strategic key. What about structure threshold, or ST? Does the same logic apply?
It does, absolutely. Again, a task card won't have an ST stat, but it might require one. Certain tasks are thematically tied to having a solid foundation, an established workshop, or a defensive wall.
So, an objective to reinforce your base?
Perfect example. The card might say, activate this task only if you have 3 or more active structures. This means you can't even begin this particular mission without first building your infrastructure. It links your long-term strategy, your board presence, directly to your short-term goals.
Let's get more specific. Are all tasks just about hitting a certain power level?
Not at all, and that's where the design gets really deep. Some tasks are about specific actions. Imagine a task called Efficient Assembly. Its condition might be, complete this task if you resolve 3 tools with CP2 or less this turn. It rewards low-to-the-ground efficient play.
So it encourages a completely different style of deck. Instead of one big tool, you're playing lots of small ones.
Precisely, or consider a multi-stage task, a blueprint card that has 3 parts. Part 1, have ST of 2 or more. Part 2, resolve a tool with the gear subtype. Part 3, end your turn with CP greater than 4. Completing all 3 provides a massive, game-winning reward. It feels less like playing a card and more like finishing a project.
So for task cards, the conclusion is clear. They don't carry their own stats. They check for them. They create thresholds, conditions, and mini-quests you need to complete.
They are hurdles, not horses.
All right. That brings us to the next piece of the puzzle. These represent your allegiance to a faction? My gut tells me these shouldn't have stats at all.
And your gut is right. Guild cards should absolutely not have CP or ST. They aren't power-generating entities, and they aren't physical structures. They are a statement of identity.
So, no CP, no ST. Simple. But you mentioned they interact with your stats.
They provide bonus layers. The Guild of Constructors, for example, rewards high ST. But what about another guild? Let's say the Chronos Draftsmen.
Okay, what's their deal?
They are obsessed with knowledge and timing. Their guild card might read, "Your maximum hand size is increased by 2. That's the passive effect. But then it has a triggered ability. At the end of your turn, if your CP is 5 or greater, you may draw a card.
I see, so it helps you get to a high CP by giving you more options. And then rewards you when you get there. It's a self-reinforcing loop.
Exactly. The guilds guide your strategy. Imagine the Rust Scrappers Union. They thrive on recycling and salvage. Their bonus might be, if your ST is 3 or more, cards in your junkyard cannot be targeted by your opponent. A defensive bonus tied to your structure. They reward you for building a fortress to protect your scrapyard.
So the guilds are passive observers that reward you for playing a certain way. They amplify your chosen strategy without directly contributing power.
Clean is the perfect word. They don't muddy the waters. They just provide the why for your how.
And that leaves the wild card. Event cards. You said these are for optional modes like player versus environment.
And with events, the rules get flexible. Like tasks, they are more likely to be triggered by CP thresholds. But here, the threshold represents a tipping point for the entire game.
Let's walk through that. Say I'm playing a solo game against an automated forged titan. I'm building my board, I play a few big tools. My CP suddenly hits 5 for the first time.
Okay, so at that moment, you check the event deck, you flip the top card. Let's say it's called Magnetic Pulse. The card's text might read, "Triggered when any player's CP reaches 5. Effect, collapse the structure with the lowest ST. All players lose 1 charge."
Wow. So my own success triggered a setback for everyone. That's a powerful balancing tool.
It makes the game feel alive. It's not just you against an opponent anymore. It's you against a dynamic environment that pushes back. It forces you to ask, is it worth pushing my CP to 5 right now, knowing it might trigger a damaging event?
That's a whole new layer of risk management. The event deck becomes a dynamic antagonist. Its difficulty rises to meet your power, ensuring the challenge is always present. Every Titan turn, draw, charge, building, act, clash, end. 6 steps. Infinite ways to forge your victory.
That core loop is the engine, and the task subsystem is the steering wheel. This brings us to a really important design insight.
Lay it on me.
In the task subsystem, CP and ST are rarely owned by cards. They are referenced, gated, or manipulated as part of the system's narrative logic.
That sounds a lot like a role-playing game.
That's the analogy they use. A quest in an RPG might require you to be level 10 or have a strength score of 14. The quest itself doesn't have a level, it asks for yours. Tasks are the quests of tools and titans.
Tasks don't fight. They measure you. How does that philosophy change how a player thinks?
It's a complete mindset shift. You move from a simple aggro or control mentality to an objective-based one. The question is no longer just, how do I deal damage? It becomes, what is the most efficient way to complete this task?
And completing that task isn't just a mechanical action. It's a story beat. If my task is reactivate the old power core and I meet the conditions, I'm not just scoring points. I am, in the narrative of this single match, actually reactivating it.
Yes, your board state tells a story. This is a key differentiator from games with other alternate win conditions. Some games have you assemble a specific combo of 5 cards, which can feel abstract. Here, the requirement, have ST of 4 and CP of 5, is a direct reflection of having the necessary structure and power to, say, bring a giant machine online. The mechanics are the narrative.
So if these are quests with requirements, how do you balance the numbers? How do you create a leveling system for these requirements without making it overly complicated?
That's where the elegance comes in. The answer isn't to create a new, complex system. It's to use the one that already exists. The recommended level range for these CP and ST thresholds is 1 to 5.
1 to 5. Why that specific range?
For several key reasons. First, it's consistent. Players already know these numbers from their tools. Second, it's intuitive. It avoids stat bloat. And third, it scales beautifully. Let's break down the feel of each level.
Okay. What does a requirement of 1 or 2 feel like?
That's an early game enabler. A task, CP greater than or equal to 2, is something you can achieve on turn 2 or 3. The reward will be small, maybe an extra charge token or a minor card filter effect. It helps smooth out your early draws.
What about the middle? A requirement of 3?
That's your mid-game standard. A task, ST greater than or equal to 3, requires a conscious effort. You had to spend a few turns building your board. The reward should be substantial, maybe drawing a card or weakening an opposing structure.
And the high end? 4?
A requirement of 4 is a stretch goal. Hitting CP or ST of 4 means your engine is really working. This is where you see powerful, swingy effects, like collapse a structure or look at your opponent's hand. It's a reward for reaching a strong board state.
And that leaves the peak. A requirement of 5.
5 is a finisher. A task, CP greater than or equal to 5, is often the cornerstone of a deck built to do that one thing. The reward should reflect that. It should be something that puts you in a commanding, often game-winning position. It's the payoff for your entire strategy.
So this system isn't just about dropping a task card into any deck, is it? It must fundamentally change how you build your deck from the ground up.
It absolutely does. It creates an entirely new deck archetype, the task-centric deck, and this is where the real genius of the system lies in the deck-building trade-offs.
What kind of trade-offs?
Well, to complete tasks consistently, you need the tasks themselves, and you need the cards that help you fulfill their specific conditions. That's deck space that you aren't using for high-power tools or defensive structures. You are making a choice.
The choice between raw power and surgical precision.
Exactly. You create this wonderful tension. Do I go for a tall strategy, playing the biggest tools to get my CP as high as possible? Or do I go for a wide strategy, playing lots of smaller, specific tools to complete a series of smaller tasks? One deck is a hammer, the other is a set of keys.
And some tasks might ask for something really specific, something that's actually inefficient from a pure power perspective. But the reward from the task makes that inefficiency worthwhile.
That is the mark of a deep and healthy meta, when players are intentionally making suboptimal plays in service of a greater alternative strategy. It's a beautiful strategic puzzle.
This is all great from a design theory perspective, but let's make it practical again. I'm a player, I'm looking at the card. How is this information presented clearly?
Communication is everything. The first and simplest way is the header trigger format, a simple line at the top, requirement, CP greater than or equal to 4. It's clean, minimal. You see the gate before you read the reward.
Clear and to the point.
The second is the condition text format. This integrates the requirement directly into the rules text. This task can only be activated if your ST is 3 or higher. It reads very naturally.
And the third is for those bonus effects.
Exactly. That's the scaling bonus format. The core task might be simple, but there's an extra reward for overachieving. For example, gain 2 charge tokens. If your CP was 5 or greater when this task was completed, draw 1 additional card.
So it creates a choice. Complete the task now for a small benefit, or wait and try for the bigger payout. That's risk and reward baked right in.
That's the core design insight here. The CP and ST on your tools and structures are your resources. The requirements on your tasks are the price. By giving clear, accessible thresholds, the game makes every task feel achievable, earned, or like a calculated gamble.
It's not just about playing cards anymore. It's about building an engine meeting a specific threshold and turning that mechanical achievement into a narrative victory.
You're not just generating power, you're proving your mastery.
So the final takeaway is this. In Tools and Titans, craft power and structure threshold are more than just numbers for combat. In the task subsystem, they are the measuring sticks. They are the keys to the gates. They are the barriers you must overcome through smart play and strategic building.
By referencing these stats instead of owning them, tasks, guilds, and events create a layer of strategy that ties your effort directly to a narrative outcome. You don't just play a card, you fulfill a blueprint. And in doing so, you prove you have the skills to be a true Titan.
In every match of Tools and Titans, your tradecraft unfolds in 6 simple moves: draw, charge, building, act, clash, end. Simplicity for the novice, mastery for the Titan.